Beyond Reason Radio.
So I have an honest question, and Tom Benson, maybe you can answer this for me.
Oh boy, here we go, right off the bat. I'm sorry, teacher, but my dog ate my homework.
I'm not trying to be like too cynical or sarcastic or anything. This is an honest question.
All right, I'll give you an honest answer.
I'm trying to be serious here, Tom Benson.
Yes, sir.
So, are the point of these social distancing and shutdown orders, is the point to stop the spread, or is the point to delay the spread? And I'm not sure I've heard a good answer to that question. I'm honestly curious. I don't think a lot of these government officials have been very clear on that.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's to stop the spread whenever possible.
But I'm just worried. I guess you're right. I'm just wondering because I hear flatten the curve.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they want to flatten the curve is because if they have too many cases all at once,
we get overwhelmed.
And then more people will die because all those cases are happening at once and they can't get the treatment they need. But when you find the curve, it kind of spreads it out over time. So does that mean they suspect that more people are going, the same amount of people are going to catch it just over a longer period of time? Or do they actually think this will work to stop a lot of people from catching it in general?
I think they believe it's inevitable that a lot of people will get it, but they're trying to keep the spike from happening by telling people to stay away from each other as much as possible. And I'll tell you what, as far as my wife is concerned, she's happy that I can't get near her.
Because of the virus, right?
Of course.
Yeah? Okay.
It's not her birthday. It's not my birthday. Valentine's Day is over with. Don't bother her for at least 9 months.
I've been talking about how a lot of those on the left are using this don't let a crisis go to waste. Sounds like your wife has the same mentality here.
A closet Democrat, huh?
Let's not let this crisis go to waste. I need time away from my husband. This is Beyond Reason Radio. The main reason I asked that question is, does this mean the shutdowns, the stay-at-home orders? It's amazing how different areas have different names for it. Some places call it safer at home orders, I guess. But does this mean that they're going to go on for like months? If they're suspecting that most people are still going to catch this over a longer period of time, does that mean they're going to have to keep these orders longer? Because if they let everyone back to work or they let everyone out again, it's just going to spread fast.
I think it all depends on how quickly the curve starts to go down and stay down. And I think the stay away or the safer distance is something that everyone can do, and it certainly will not exasperate the situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've talked about on the show for the past few episodes, and I still think it's a concern. How do we get the nation back to work while at the same time containing the spread of this virus?
Well, I think the president's onto something when he says there's certain areas of the country that probably will be able to get back to work before, say, New York, because they're not as seriously infected.
But every time he brings that up, or people like me bring that up, they get blasted for it. That we don't care about people, we just care about dollars. I'm... By the way, I said it already, but this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight, but if you missed any of the show, catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. That is Tom Benson in the control room. I think you're doing okay.
And we're 12 feet apart from each other with 3 glass paned windows in between us.
It is so strange going to a grocery store or going to a gas station right now, and they have blue tape on the floor of how apart you're supposed to stand, and you walk next to people in the aisles, and they like cower in fear away from you. You think there's like something wrong with the way you look. They think they treat you like a vampire or something.
Is my fly down or something?
Yeah,
what's the story
but it's just it's bizarre.
Yeah, it is
going through all of this. But I'm just still amazed how many people in this country mostly on the left, are just economically illiterate. They just don't understand how an economy works, how money works, how all of this stuff. Because I read stuff, Twitter, from people on the left sometimes. I just happen to catch a part of some podcast on YouTube. This leftist was talking about the lieutenant governor and what he said, and we'll get into that later, the lieutenant governor of Texas. And he was going on and he was saying, yeah, this country only cares about the dollar. We don't care about lives or people. These people that want to start opening the economy, they just care about the almighty dollar and the stock market. They don't care about human lives. And I just can't understand what is so difficult to understand about the fact that an economy and money is how you get to eat and how you get clothing and how you get shelter. What is so difficult about that to understand? Where do they think all of that comes from? Do they think if we don't have money that stuff will just still be there and it'll just be provided to you by the government or just the companies? That's
probably it, but they don't understand there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah. Somebody
sometime has got to pay for it.
Exactly. And they don't understand incentives. We're not going to produce all these things just because. You have to have an incentive. You have to have a return for your labor, a return for your production. And it's communism. I think a lot of them don't realize what they're promoting. But what they're promoting is communism, basically, that we should go away from a money-based capitalist system and have something where we just have this all-shared prosperity and everything, which really just takes away your private property and the value that you put into your work. But I think it's basically communism, and it's like it doesn't work, people. Communism doesn't work. There's pretty much only a couple options for an economy. Communism is not one of them. You either have money, and people are like, oh, it's the money itself doesn't have any value. The piece of paper doesn't have any value. It's just a way we trade with one another. It's a brilliant way that human beings trade with one another. And if we don't have that, we have a barter system. If we get rid of the money system, then you basically go, which apparently is happening. Apparently people are like trading toilet paper for eggs now. Apparently that's actually a thing.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of people these days who have nothing to trade. They sit in front of a computer all day long and play video games.
Exactly. That's why that's why a barter system wouldn't get as much prosperity, because you have to have things to trade. So if we would they rather us go to a barter system? You can't. So you have what we have now based on currency, based on money, which was developed thousands of years ago for a reason. And they're saying, oh, you either have one or the other. Oh, no, we can have this sort of utopian vision of shared prosperity and shared property and all. It doesn't work. And there are reasons why. And this is not a new idea. Like, they act like they're brilliant with this idea that we should have that. It's not a new idea. You're just basically saying communist things without saying the word communism.
The best analogy I ever heard was Halloween. Two brothers. One goes out and does trick-or-treating neighbor to neighbor, house to house, and comes back with a bunch of candy. The other brother, who did nothing, sat at home. And the brother sitting at home expects to get his share of his other brother's candy.
Exactly
it just
right.
Won't work. Well, the thing is, if it does work one year, the next year, what's the incentive for the brother to go out and hustle more candy if he knows he has to give up a whole bunch of it?
And it's funny when you say that, Tom Benson, it just seems like common sense. It seems like that kind of thing should go without saying. But we have to say it because so many people out there, influential people, don't seem to understand the concept of that. It stuns me. It really stuns me how when people like me are saying we have to open up the economy because this is affecting people's lives, and it's affecting small business owners. It's really affecting the poor more than the rich. You know, AOC came out recently and criticized Governor Cuomo because Governor Cuomo lifted evictions for mortgages. I have to look it up again. And AOC pointed out that, well, then you need to restrict, you need to lift rent too for people that are renting. And they have outlawed evictions for renters right now.
Correct.
But they'll have to pay the rent later, probably.
Eventually, sure.
And AOC was right about one thing. The way this epidemic works, it probably affects the poor more than the rich. But then AOC and her side, they're the side that wants to keep everything shut down and complain when people like me talk about maybe opening up this somehow so those who are dependent on their small business income can still have an income so they can buy food and things. So I don't understand it. So it's the Democrats, they blast you because they say Republicans don't care about lives or the poor. And then when we actually point out something where we care about the poor and lives, then we're blasted for that. Tell me how that makes sense. Sounds a little beyond reason to me. Coming up in the next segment, I do want to talk about how capitalism is saving us in a lot of ways in this country right now. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You know what's beyond reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
A friend of mine on Facebook said, so if I'm not watching Tiger King, am I even a part of this pandemic? I've not watched that show on Netflix. I really didn't have much of a desire to, but the obsession with it is...
I just found out yesterday what it's all about. I've been seeing so many references on social media to this Tiger King thing. I didn't even know what they were talking about.
I had no desire, but... I
don't have Netflix. How would I know?
Yeah.
You know?
You don't have Netflix, man.
No, I know.
Way behind the time.
Yeah, I got 3 channels, NBC, CBS, and ABC. That's it. No, just kidding. But that's the way it was one day.
Yeah. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason, the voice of truth in a world that is beyond reason. Unfortunately, the coronavirus pandemic is still pretty much the top news right now. I mean, what else would we even talk about? Are there any other topics going on at the moment that you see on the news ever right now, Tom Benson?
Well, the Royals have moved to Los Angeles. That's about the only other thing I can think of. And, and I keep seeing that, and I said, so, and who cares, you know?
Exactly. I did see that Trump said he's not going to give them special security.
Right, and then they said, well, we weren't going to ask for any anyway, you know.
I thought that was pretty funny. So
at one time, they said they wouldn't move to the U.S. as long as Trump was president.
Yeah, of course. That's what a lot of people say. Yeah. Where are you going to go? I mean, come on. So we were talking about the fact that I believe capitalism has helped us tremendously during this pandemic. And one of the ways you realize this is because just watch TV commercials right now. It could be Jersey Mike's, it could be McDonald's, it could be Wendy's. You don't even need to actually watch TV commercials. If you have the apps on your phone, they send you this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them are doing free delivery right now?
Not only that, but there's besides the free delivery, they're not selling anything. They're saying, we're with you, we're here to help. You know, if you need anything, we'll deliver. It's basically what they're saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's empathy, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, well, but it's really, there's some empathy, but it's really not. It's supply and demand, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
There is a demand for delivery of these takeout foods right now. There is a demand to get it somehow, and the only way you can get it is through delivery or takeout. And a lot of these places had things set up, but they're able to adjust and they're able to change some of their business model right now because of our capitalist economy, because that's why a free market economy works.
In other words, the companies and the businesses can do it their way as opposed to somebody telling them how they should do it.
Imagine if we had a top-down economic system where there was so much control of the government, and you have that system in place. There's a pandemic that happens. Do you honestly think that system will be any good at adjusting to the situations of a pandemic? No, nobody believes that. The government would be horrible at adjusting to something like that. But we are seeing it within days right now of many companies being able to adjust because that's how capitalism or free market works. When you give them the freedoms to do this stuff, and we already had prosperity to begin with because of our capitalist economy. A lot of these companies already had apps. A lot of businesses were already online and able to work from home. There's a lot of things a lot of different ways we can communicate now during quarantine that we wouldn't have been able to do maybe 20 years ago. And all that's because of the capitalist economy, but we're able to adjust somewhat because of the free market economy we have. We're able to get groceries delivered to our house, food delivered to our house, our goods delivered to our house. We're able to work from home. We're able to get more info. We're able to do all these things because of capitalism. And I think it's something that we should be thankful for. And a lot of people aren't thinking about that. All these things that we're still able to do in the midst of a pandemic would not be possible without a capitalist economy. And the other example of how capitalism is working is it is private industries stepping up because they can, sacrificing some of their bottom line in order to fight against this pandemic. Now, I could give you countless examples of this happening all around the country. One thing I see happening a lot, and I don't have one business in front of me because there's a lot of them doing, a lot of these beer distilleries are switching production to hand sanitizer because they have the alcohol. They just have to kind of switch how it's made, and it's not that difficult of a process. And they're stepping up and they're doing it. And a lot of them are doing it for free. They're giving it out for free. And that's happening because we have private entrepreneurship and a free market dynamic economy that is able to change the situations. But another example of this was talked about yesterday. President Trump had CEO of MyPillow, Mike Lindell, talk about what he's doing for the economy. Here's what he said.
What MyPillow has done, we've established an internal task force which is monitoring future needs of companies across the country as a result of this pandemic. And given our position, we've begun to research and develop new protocols to address the current and future needs of U.S. businesses across multiple sectors. How companies are going to prepare themselves when they once again open up and changes to their current operations in order to adjust to future threats and pandemics. MyPillow has designated some of its call center to help U.S. companies navigate the many issues that resulted from this pandemic. We've dedicated 75% of my manufacturing to produce cotton face masks. In 3 days, I was up to 10,000 a day. By Friday, I want to be up to 50,000 a day. I'm proud to manufacture our products in the United States, and I'm even more proud to be able to serve our nation in this great time of need. Thank you, Mr. President, for your call to action which has empowered companies like MyPillow to help our nation win this invisible war.
There is example. I mean, that's just one example. There is example after example after example of this kind of stuff happening across the country. It's very similar to what we did in World War II. There was not just a top-down approach to our economy during World War II. There were private businesses that were able to step up and sometimes work with the government to get things we needed for the war effort, and that's happening now. And I think it's good to understand that these things would not be happening without our free market system. They wouldn't be. So when you get McDonald's delivered to your house tomorrow because you just want to eat some really good food, well, I know some people don't know if it is really good food. I like it. Okay, what's a better example? Chili's? I don't know. Chili's sent me a thing where you can get free queso and salsa if you get something delivered. But I mean, these things would not be possible without new technology, but without free markets, without capitalism, without a dynamic economy that is able to shift to the needs of the country and shift to the supply and demand that's out there.
Well, look beyond fast food. Look at you can get your groceries delivered at home.
Exactly. I did that I've delivered groceries for a while. By the way, there's that whole issue right now where Instacart, which delivers groceries, I did Shipt, which is a different company, but Instacart employees want to strike because they feel like they're not being taken care of enough during all this. I wonder if it's a really good time to strike because there's literally millions of people losing their jobs right now. So are you going to complain? They said they need more hand sanitizers and they should get paid more and all that stuff. The only thing I really agreed with them on is they should maybe have tips as a part of the pay automatically, because I have to admit there was a bunch of people when I were delivering groceries. I mean, most people tipped, but there were a lot of people that didn't tip. And the reason why they wouldn't tip is because it's all done in the app. So they knew they could get away with it, frankly. You know, they know if they don't have to tip you face to face that I'll tip you later and then not tip you. And they'll give me like 5 stars. So it wasn't like my service. You could see I have like 5 stars, but they wouldn't tip you. And so I think there is something to be said about, maybe adding that on there or something. But I don't know if it's a good idea to strike and to complain too much when you're able to work while a lot of people are out of a job right now. So one thing I do want to discuss is this Tampa pastor. I really should put the pastor in quotes because I don't know if I really consider him a pastor. But one thing I do want to discuss coming up in a moment is this pastor, in quotes, was arrested for holding services last Sunday. This has become a big freedom versus security issue, but there's something else I want to address as well. So we'll get to that in a moment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Welcome back to the show. Remember, you can listen to WFLA anytime on your smart speaker. If you have Amazon Echo, just say, Alexa, listen to News Radio Orlando on iHeartRadio. If you have Google, just say, listen to News Radio WFLA. And you can always listen on the iHeartRadio app. And while you're on the iHeartRadio app, just subscribe to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. It's good for your health in these times. I just have to say, I think it is. So, we're going to get to the whole issue with the Tampa pastor in a moment. But there is this other thing that's really been driving me crazy and driving a lot of people crazy. People are still blasting Trump for his initial response to this. And there could be an argument that it was downplayed a little too much in the beginning. But you know what? I don't think anyone really saw how much this would affect the country. I mean, could you imagine if President Trump in January said, well, to stop this pandemic, we're just going to have to shut down the country. We're going to have to stop all immigration into the country. Oh, he would be called all kinds of names.
Exactly.
Oh, we're just going to have to do all this. They would say he's a dictator, blah, blah, blah. And
they said that anyway.
No, that's true. So maybe I guess he could have just done it.
And then they ended up wanting him to take action that some would consider to be a dictatorship.
Yeah, they still want him to do that, actually. But so the reason why I want to point this out is they're making this a Republican-Democrat issue. Republicans weren't prepared. Democrats are prepared. Nancy Pelosi came out and said Trump fiddled while people were dying and all this stuff. But then Mitch McConnell came out and said, well, we were not as focused on it because we were all focused on impeachment.
Amen.
At the time. So if we're going to play this game, this back and forth could go on
forever,
all day.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out that it wasn't just Trump that was downplaying a lot of this in the beginning. Let's listen to, what do I have first? Do I have
De Blasio.
De Blasio. Let's listen to a montage here of Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, which is being slammed right now, and he's been blasting Trump like crazy. How he responded just... A lot of this is from March. Here it is.
Well, some of it starts in February and moves to be more current.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have 1,200 hospital beds. That is a very, very substantial capacity. The message to New Yorkers from the beginning has been, this is something we all can handle together. Go about your lives, go about your business. We have the capacity to keep this contained. The fact that at this hour we have 1,200 beds ready right this moment should be very reassuring. And we have a very isolated situation. People should continue going about their lives.
Keeps going.
So
he's coughing into the mic at his hand.
CDC officials have asked parents to ask districts about whether there are plans for remote learning in the event that one or more schools have to close. Is that something that the DOE is prepared to do?
I think we're not there yet either, because the model we are working on right now does not involve
doesn't want to close schools.
I think we said the other day in the meeting that health hospitals is in strong shape. Something like ventilators, you can speak to that.
I think it was March 2nd.
On ventilators, New York City is in good shape. And based on even the most dire predictions of percentages of people who will have serious illness with this, we will be fine.
I want to keep encouraging people to go out and live their lives and patronize those businesses.
One other question. Tomorrow evening, Purim begins.
Yes.
Is it safe for people who have no symptoms to visit parents and grandparents?
Yeah, the point is, and
go ahead and visit them.
If no one has symptoms, neither the visitors nor the people being visited, yes. I am still going out to small businesses. I am saying to my fellow New Yorkers, unless you have particular vulnerabilities or you have symptoms, I believe you can go about your life, continue to patronize our small businesses, and I urge you to. We would say we'll get to case number 100 somewhere next 2 to 3 weeks. My goal is to have minimal disruption of our schools. Some places like Italy are doing mass school closures. That's not on the menu here. I am not ready today at this hour.
This has been going on for like a minute and a half already.
No bars, no restaurants, no rec centers, no libraries. I'm not there. So I regret to have to announce that as of tomorrow, our public schools will be closed. If you love your neighborhood bar, go there now, under 50% occupancy, because we don't know what the future holds.
A lot of that was even after the Trump administration was downplaying it. And, I don't really do this to blast de Blasio. I mean, maybe his hypocrisy. But the point is, this is kind of unprecedented. And we're moving as the data comes in. We're reacting as things happen, because we haven't had anything like this before in our country. So to blast Trump for stuff that you were doing as well seems a little extreme. But everyone says, well, Trump downplayed it. But Dr. Fauci, he is the guy who has been right the whole time.
We need to hear more from the experts.
Exactly. Well, here's that expert back in the end of January. This is what he said on an interview.
What can you tell the American people about what's going on? Should they be scared?
I don't think so. The American people should not be worried or frightened by this. It's a very, very low risk to the United States. It isn't something that the American public needs to worry about or be frightened about, because we have ways of preparing, of screening, of people coming in, and we have ways of responding, like we did with this one case in Seattle, Washington, who had traveled to China and brought back the infection.
That was Dr. Fauci in January. So everyone's blasting Trump for downplaying it. That was Dr. Fauci, the expert, who was downplaying it in the beginning. This is unprecedented. A lot of people didn't think this was going to happen. But that hasn't stopped a lot of people in the Trump-hating media like CNN. This happened at the press briefing yesterday, I believe, where Jim Acosta, CNN reporter, decided to go after Trump for this. Of course, Trump let him have it. Here it is.
What do you say to Americans who are upset with you over the way you downplayed this crisis over the last couple of months?
Here we go.
We have it very much under control in this country. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. It's going to disappear. It's like a miracle. It will disappear. March 4th, we have a very small number of people in this country infected. March 10th, we're prepared. We're doing a great job with it. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm. And we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away. And it will go away. And we're going to have a great victory. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that, it's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question. The statements I made are, I want to keep the country calm. I don't want panic in the country. I could cause panic much better than even you. I could do much. I would make you look like a minor league player. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have our country be calm and strong and fight and win. And it will go away. And it is incredible, the job that all of these people are doing, putting them all together, the job that they're doing. I am very proud of the job they're doing, that Mike Pence is doing, that the task force has done, that Honeywell and Procter & Gamble and Mike and all of these people have done.
Another example of private industry helping out.
It's almost a miracle, and it is, the way it's all come together. And instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question. And other than that, I'm going to go to somebody else. Please, go ahead, please.
I mean, I agree with Trump. Why ask that question? I mean, the whole purpose of that question is to try to make him look bad.
It's gotcha.
Yeah.
Journalism.
It's exactly what it is. So, I mean, Trump was exactly right there. So we have to talk about this pastor in Tampa who decided to hold services on Sunday despite the stay-at-home orders. And a lot of people think he was arrested for this. And a lot of people think this is unconstitutional to arrest him for that. And I want to give my opinion on that in just a second. But it's Pastor Rodney Howard Brown. He's the pastor of Tampa Mega Church in Hillsborough County. I believe the River at Tampa Bay Church is what it's called. And which cut do I do? I have actually him first, it says Tampa Church.
We have Matt Staver first.
Oh, we have Matt Staver. You know what? Why don't we take a break and get back to this real quick? I know it's this terrible, terrible tease, but we'll get to that. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
The pastor of a Tampa mega church is facing charges after refusing to close its doors despite a safer at-home order in effect in Hillsborough County, meant to stop the spread of COVID-19. The sheriff says up to 500 people were in attendance at Pastor Rodney Howard Brown's Sunday services. Now, in terms of, welcome back to Beyond Reason Radio, by the way, in terms of should he have been arrested? A part of me thinks no, because there is definitely a First Amendment issue, and I don't know how you get around that here. You know, when we start taking away your rights and just say it's because safety, I think that can be a problem. The other reason why I wish we didn't arrest him and found another way to shut down his church is because I think we're making a martyr out of him. I mean, a part of me thinks this is what he wants. He wants this attention. He wants to be a martyr. That being said, I think the guy is an idiot for doing this. Actually, he might be smart. I think he's corrupt for doing this. I think he had bad intentions. I mean, I can't judge his heart, so maybe I don't know for sure. But one thing that kind of surprised me is the Liberty Council with Matt Staver, who I like the Liberty Council. I like Matt Staver a lot. They're defending him. Now, they are defending him on the religious freedom aspect, which I can kind of understand. But they're also defending him based on stuff he did to make it safer in the church. Here's a little bit of Matt Staver in an interview with Fox today. Here it is.
This church has a concern not only for the physical well-being of its participants in the community, but also the spiritual well-being. They bought $100,000 worth of hospital-grade equipment that they have established throughout the church that kills microbes, including those in the family of the coronavirus. You cannot look at this situation and say that it's being evenly enforced across the board.
And Matt Staver also said not only did the church comply with the administrative order regarding 6-foot distancing, it went above and beyond any other business to ensure the health and safety of the people. Contrary to Sheriff Cronister's allegation that Pastor Howard Brown was reckless. And, of course, the pastor came out in before the service, I think, in another interview. It was either before or after the service actually was held. He said this is one reason why you can come to the service. Here it is.
We brought in 13 machines that basically killed every virus in the place. If they sneeze it shoots it down like at 100 miles an hour. It'll neutralize it in a split second.
I find this very difficult to believe. I'd have to see these machines. But in terms of, social distancing and all, they were doing it safely. Tom Benson, I showed you the pictures. Mm-hmm. I went and watched the Facebook Live video of this.
Looked a little crowded.
It looked really crowded. There was one point where they had people come up to the front, and some of them were putting their hands on each other's back.
It seems to me, if you had $100,000, there's a better way to spend that, because you can always worship online like a lot of other churches are forced to do.
Exactly. I have a feeling that this guy, I was listening to some of his sermon. This is obviously prosperity gospel guy. This is a guy who says, I can heal you and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I think he was wrong in doing this. There was no reason for him to do this. And when you go, and I'm surprised by Matt Staver's defense that, they did all these health safety features, so it should be okay. And I'm looking at the video, I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm like, what are you talking about? They're crowded, and they're pretty close together. They, some of them were a little bit distance, a couple of chairs apart, but they were still behind the row. And there was parts where they were standing up and singing, and then people were coming on stage, and the guy had the mic, and the guy with the mic didn't have gloves, and they didn't wash the mic after. I did not see what Matt Staver is talking about in terms of if the goal is to contain the spread, and one of the best ways to do that is to not have big crowds of people in one area. It seems to me that this church did the opposite of that. Because there was a lot of people in a pretty small area, and frankly, a lot of them were close together. And that doesn't even count when they got in and left the church. I'm sure when they left the church, there were a lot, I just don't buy the argument. I'm sorry, Matt. I just don't see that. If you want to make a religious liberty argument, that's a little bit different. But to make the argument that, they were following all the health safety guidelines in terms of health, it was fine. And then you go to the video and you look at the pictures. I'm sorry. It doesn't look like that to me. I can see with my own eyes what's happening actually at that church.
It's kind of similar to spring breakers about 2 weeks ago, who defied common sense and were on the beach having a lot of fun. Yeah. And they were finally dispersed when the governor closed the beaches and said, your party's over. And a lot of those people have now come down with surprise.
Exactly. And I think that's very possible here. I'm not one. You can make the argument that there's an overreaction to a lot of what's going on, and make the religious liberty argument like they're saying, but don't make the argument that, everything's health safety guidelines. And I watched the video, and they're all pretty crowded together. I'm sorry.
It comes down to the old story of just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
Yeah, and there was something that the pastor said that really caught my attention. He said, church is essential right now, is what he told me. Church is essential. And that's why we should have these services. And you know what my response is to that? Yes, church is essential right now. But your building is not the church. Your Sunday service building is not the church. You can have the church online, streaming services. You can have... The church is the people. The church is, things that are going on in my church right now where people are reaching out to me and making sure I'm okay and that people are okay. That's the church. The church isn't reliant on you having a Sunday service in your building and having a worship team. That's not what the church, that's not the core of the church. I'm not saying those things aren't good. I like going to Sunday services. But to say that the church is essential, so we have to have this Sunday service, that's not the core of the church. You can still have the church, which is the followers of Christ, the kingdom of God on earth throughout the world, without being dangerous in an epidemic. Now, we talked about this morning, and a listener actually emailed the station and complained that I called this guy a con man and I was being too judgmental. And, I was like, you know what? I don't think I just called him a con man. I think I actually called him much worse than that. So I pulled the audio from this morning. Go ahead to the Yaffee one audio real quick, and we'll go back to the other one. This is me this morning. This is actually what I said about him this morning. Well, I think this pastor is a moron for even doing this in the first place, and obviously corrupt. I think he was corrupt before this, and I'm not surprised when I read more about who he is. That being said, I'm a little nervous about arresting him, because if you're going to arrest him, you probably have to arrest all the people that went to the church because they were violating the order. And I'm afraid that we're going to make a martyr out of him, so to speak, and make him even more popular. I wish there was a way maybe to shut down the church without arresting him. So I actually called him a moron. So I think it was a lot worse than just saying he was a con man. Just saying. So how should we respond in these times? What is the best way to respond in faith in these times? Get attention for yourself by holding a service when you shouldn't, or how Mike Lindell responded yesterday. Go ahead and play that for me, Tom Benson.
Now I wrote something off the cuff, if I can read that. Okay. God gave us grace on November 8, 2016, to change the course we were on. God had been taken out of our schools and lives. A nation had turned its back on God. And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families. Our president gave us so much hope where just a few short months ago, we had the best economy, the lowest unemployment, and wages going up. It was amazing. With our great president, vice president, and this administration, and all the great people in this country praying daily, we will get through this and get back to a place that's stronger and safer than ever.
So there was maybe a little bit too much tribute to Trump. I don't know. But the idea that we should get back to God and we should pray in our homes and read the Bible in our homes, that's how we should respond to faith, honestly, in these times. Just because you can't have your Sunday service doesn't mean the church is dead. It could be even more alive in some ways. So I appreciate you listening to the show. By the way, special announcement, I will be back tomorrow at the same time for a Wednesday edition of Beyond Reason Radio, where I'm your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. If you missed any of the show, you can catch the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. You can catch us on Facebook Live as well. The video will be up there. Just like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Thanks to Tom Benson for producing as always, and I will catch you guys next time.